What's going on, you guys? TBR here, back yet again with another King of Fighters All-Star video. And in today's video, well, we're going to be taking a look at Mr. 75,000 Rubies himself. Yes, that's right, you guys. We are going to be talking about our first impressions for EX Krohnen. So in today's video, as always with these first impressions videos, I'm basically going to be showing you guys a bunch of footage at the end of this video. Timestamps will be available in the description, so that way you can kind of take a look at how things have been going during my testing for this character. And I will also be going ahead and teeing all of that stuff up for you guys here in the introduction, as I am going to be going through and talking about all the different things about this kit that so far I have found that I really like, and the couple little things that might be downsides to this character, because hey, everybody has to have a flaw here or there, right? So we're going to just jump into it today, but before we go ahead and get into all of that more, make sure if you guys haven't already done so, you smash that like button and subscribe. Without further ado, let's talk about EX Krohnen. So let's start off here and talk about the kit, right? So in general, EX Krohnen to me feels very much so like a Swiss Army knife. This is a character that has a ton of different tools in his toolbox, and therefore he is going to be extremely useful in a lot of different scenarios and a lot of different game modes. That is why in this video today I will be showing you guys several different game modes using this character, just to show a little bit of that versatility, and we'll kind of discuss it as we go through this discussion here. So the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to this character is kind of the basics, right? So when it comes to Krohnen, he's basically going to have a little bit of everything, but really what he's trying to accomplish is he's trying to accomplish big damage numbers using his explosion, and if you have it, which I highly recommend that you do get it, the newest card set. So basically, this character on his awakening spam, if we take a look at the S3 here, this is of course going to be his Max Fusion Blaster. Now Max Fusion Blaster is going to be a charge skill, but what you're going to notice at a full charge is it's going to deal that 5.5 times of burn damage, right? So that burn explosion on the full charge, you're going to get that full 5.5 times when it's fully charged, meaning that when you're on your awakening spam, you are going to be just chucking huge numbers at whatever you are hitting. So with that out of the way, really the other big thing to keep in mind there on that awakening rotation is, like I just mentioned with that newest card set, being the fact that that new card set is going to be able to give you access to max mode, which basically is going to increase your attack by 100% if you're doing it correctly and getting the full 5 bars out of your Krohnen. Then you're going to be just dealing a ton of damage. And that isn't even to mention all the other things that go on with this card set, because in general, this card set actually has quite a few little tricks to it. You're also going to have that increase to your defensive type fighter's combat power by 35,000. That is absolutely ridiculous, but arguably the most important one is going to be on the third card, which is going to be that 30% chance to charge 5 of your power bars upon landing an active skill on a cooldown of 45 seconds. So really, he's exploiting this card set extremely well. In my opinion, this is the best in slot for him. But really with this character, his damage numbers are pretty freaking ridiculous. However, he does hold himself back with one thing, which we'll talk about. But let's continue talking about just how much damage this character can put on. So with the fact that you are going to be able to get so much damage out of your awakening rotation with a combination of the explosion, all these different buffs that this character has, and the ability to really just get the full breadth out of that newest card set with the EX Volume 3, this character is already doing very well. But if you take a look at the cores, you're also going to have a decrease to your active skill cooldowns by 0.2 seconds upon landing a hit on a burn target. So this is another big deal for him. Basically what this means is you are also going to have the ability to control your cooldowns on your skills, which is very important, right? Especially for a character such as this that is going to want to be firing off as many skills as possible, even more so than a lot of other characters out there, because a lot of the time he is going to be living and breathing off of that new card set, and so therefore he's going to want to try and get as many of those bars up as quickly as possible throughout the fight. So it keeps him consistent that way. However, you will have to dance around the explosion on the S3 in order to really exploit that, so keep that in mind. other things here, you're going to be increasing your burn damage by 120% for 5 seconds upon landing a crit. So this is another thing that is going to be boosting that damage even more. So you'll also see here, upon landing a Heat Shield EX, you're going to reset your Fusion Blaster charging cooldown and increase your damage dealt to the target by 25% for 5 seconds on a cooldown of 12 seconds. So in this core here, you have basically 2 ways of getting access to your skills again, right? So this is a really, really stacked character when it comes to his cores and his effects on his skills. And you can really see that here with Controlled Arm, because this right here basically is going to be a greatest hits of some of the better core effects that you would want on your offensive style characters. Now, it continues to get better. If we take a look at Return, you're going to be immune to Petrify and Darkness, which is really, really nice. And then you're going to recover 15% of your HP when you're attacked with an ultimate move on a cooldown of 10 seconds. So this right here doesn't come up super often. However, it is something that does come up here and there. The more important heal on this kit is actually going to be on his 3PG finisher, which we'll get to and we'll talk about once we finish up with the cores. However, there's one last thing we need to finish up here. So when his HP is 30% or less, he becomes immune to damage for 3 seconds on a cooldown of 12 seconds. So this right here basically is very similar to your Street Fighter characters. This is going to mean that this character is going to be very useful for things such as Tower of Trials, right? So I don't know if I have talked to you guys about this yet, but basically I decided to just leave my last stage of Tower of Trials open so that way I can test these new characters there and try to get a chance to get an idea of how they perform there. Although I will admit that those rubies right now are looking really juicy, but I will try to hold myself back. But I did take him in and test him there, and this character, 2 different things I noticed. One is he is going to have an extremely easy time keeping himself alive. It's a combination of the fact that he's going to have some of these heals, but also it has a lot to do with the fact that he has this core right here. He's also really good at juggling Dark Ash, so in general, this character against that last stage in Tower of Trials is going to slot right in and fit right in with some of the better characters for that mode. So if you're somebody that may have missed out on Street Fighter, this is going to be a character that, while he won't carry you by any stretch of the imagination there, would be an amazing character to have there and does do extremely well. You can actually see by this screenshot here, I was actually able to run the clock with this character and still have him at almost full health the entire fight. And I actually could have gone to the end of the timer, but I decided that I was kind of bored with it, so I just stopped. But really, you can kind of tell just from that screenshot just how strong this character can be at surviving in some of these more difficult parts of the game. So finally here, he has a 30% chance to become immune to damage for 4 seconds when attacked on a cooldown of 15 seconds. So basically, this character on Return has 2 of the best possible things he could have for something like that game mode, and in general, these 2 saves right here are wonderful, and he also, of course, has hyper armor on his skills, so this character has a lot of protection. He's going to be a character that is a defensive type, so of course he's going to be a little bit tankier, have a little bit more sustain, but I really like the way that they did that with him. Instead of just trying to stack his defense, even though he is going to have a little bit of his attack and conversion there for his defense, so he's going to have that increased attack by 70% of defense for 7 seconds when using a skill. He's going to have that conversion there, but he isn't going to be living and dying off of it, nor is he going to be solely focused on that as a defensive style character. Really, that's just kind of there as an aside, just for an extra boost on his kit, which is really nice and sets him apart a little bit from how they've done some of these defensive style characters in the past. And instead, they just flat out gave him things like damage immunity, which is really nice. So that's pretty much the cores. However, one thing I wanted to go ahead and talk about real quick, if we take a look here, because I mentioned to you guys that he does have an effect here on this card, right? So basically, he's going to recover his HP by 8% when using this. So this is really good, again, in things such as Tower of Trials, but really in general, it's just a good effect to have, especially if Daimo's base ever comes back or anything of that nature. This character having an onboard heal is really nice, and in general, this character has a couple of different heals. This one tends to be the more reliable one, but in general, really good stuff. So this character again, if you guys can't tell, has so much going on. We haven't even talked about the EX skill yet, but let's talk about it. So Krohnen has a really interesting concentration on his kit. So basically, of course, this is going to be an interrupt. It's going to be limited to standing, airborne, or knockdown, which is as versatile as you're going to find. But then you're going to have the PVE exclusive of resetting your cooldowns of all of your active skills, and then it is going to decrease Infernal Prominence's skill cooldown by 100% for 6 seconds and charges 10% power every 1 second upon use, right? And then also, while Concentration Finisher is activated, Max Fusion Blaster skill will be activated instantly. So this character can basically go in and just spam his finishers on his concentration really, really well. You're going to have a little tiny gap in between them there where you're going to get some charge bars going there, but in general, being able to just spam those is really good. It's a really interesting, very different concentration than from what we're normally used to. I wouldn't say it's anything that is overly broken in anything that I've played so far. In fact, I've been trying to figure out different ways to really work it in. It's really hard in things such as Guild Raid to find instances where it's all that useful for him, especially in a solo capacity, because this character, as we're about to talk about when we talk about the one big con to his kit, he is going to have a little bit of trouble as far as extending a fight and as far as trying to balance having 5 charge bars and his awakening rotation available at the same time so that you can get the full boost out of that card set, which is really where his bread is buttered. So in general, while this is extremely good and very, very fun to use, I wouldn't say it's anything that's a must have for him. So if you're somebody that's wondering if you need to max him out to get the full use out of him, I don't necessarily think so, but I do think that as time goes on, and again, this is just first impressions, that over time, probably very soon, you're probably going to start seeing people finding different avenues of using this and getting a lot of really good usefulness out of it. So I do think that it has value, a lot of it. It's just one of those things where, while it's very interesting, I don't necessarily think it's going to be a must-have for him and make or break his kit. So that is that. Other things in here, really, I think we've covered the majority of these different effects in here. I mean, like I said, on the charge skill on Fusion Blaster, he's going to have Hyper Armor on there with a standing, airborne, and knockdown interrupt, which is also extremely good. So you basically have all the versatility in the world there. And one other thing he does have is he has this finisher, and we're going to talk about these finishers now, which is going to be where we talk about the cons for this character, which is really important. Because there's one big con with this character that most people may not know going into the banner or may not realize going into the banner. So I want to talk about that, but first, he has a 70% chance to reset the active skill cooldown when using a skill on his core finisher. So on his core finisher, basically, you're going to be able to have that 70% chance to just continually reset your skills, right? That's really good. Really, really good, and it comes up a ton. Now, this finisher is extremely quick. This finisher, probably by proxy of the fact that he has that EX core the way it is, this finisher, very, very quick, doesn't last very long. You get that reset in there, which is really nice. You can actually fit this in when GEESE has got his arms up to go for his ground aura and still be able to get out of the way of the ground aura. It's that quick. So that does have a really good effect on it, and being that it can reset all of your skills on a 70% chance is really powerful. We've already talked about Calamity Overdrive's heal effect on the card, so we don't need to go into that again, but when it comes to the finishers, both of these finishers are very short, right? So that is his one big weakness in some areas of the game, particularly in Guild Raid, where elongating the fight is more important than other game modes. And honestly, I was talking to somebody about this the other day. Clock stopping in general has kind of become something that's a bit dated, if we could say that. So I don't think it's necessarily anything that's that big of a deal nowadays as it was maybe a year ago. But basically what you're going to notice is that this character is going to be putting up extremely high damage numbers for about half of the amount of time that it would take other characters to do similar damage or more. So that's something that really it can be a bit of a mirage, right? So people might look at that and go, they'll see him putting up, you know, 4+ billion damage against Nightmare Geese in Inferno, right? And of course he lacks the proper dot for that, but we're going to talk about something when it comes to that. Stay tuned. But they're going to see that and they might think, okay, well, his damage isn't that high, right? That is not the case. He is doing 4+ billion damage in Inferno and Lunatic and so on in 3 minutes or under. Most of the runs with this character are going to end up, as long as you can get as many finishers in there as possible, which you definitely want to try because, again, those fights will be very short. However, in under 3 minutes, he's doing 4+ billion damage. So that is something to keep in mind when you consider the fact that characters like Akuma, characters like Angel, etc., usually you're talking for a solo about 5+ minutes. Okay? That's a huge deal. Huge thing to keep in mind there. So that basically means that what's going on there is you are doing almost the same amount of damage with 40% of the less of the time. Really crazy stuff. So that's something I just wanted to throw in there just as an aside. So other things here, big thing, like I said, finishers are his weakness. They're very short. However, everything else in here, I'm a huge fan of and have no issue with. So other things that we need to talk about, right? I'm going to talk about a few things here since we've gotten that part out of the way. So when it comes to the build of this character and how to set him up, right? I would recommend a couple of different things. So the first thing, obviously, I would recommend is you are going to want the new card set. Fugitive is going to be the best set for this character in general. I've already pointed out all the reasons as to why, or at least most of the reasons as to why. Another big reason is this is going to be a very, very good set for CP boosting for him. So this is another one that is going to give you a ton of CP. It isn't necessarily going to give you quite as much as the next set that I will recommend, but this one right here is going to be the way to go. This is going to be where you're going to be able to get the most out of your Krohnen. It can be a little wonky working around the effect here of wanting to have that full 5 bars to get the max mode activated, well, at max power. So that is something you'll have to play around with. There will be points where you're going to have to change the way you would normally play to accommodate it, but it's worth it. So that is what I would recommend for the best in slot for this character in general, right? However, if you do not have that set and you have Successor Set is also extremely good. It's a more traditional card set in the capacity that it isn't like that max mode set, but it is an extremely powerful set. This character already likes his crits, so in general, if you want as much CP as you possibly can get, if you want a card set that is just going to perform really, really solidly and give you a lot of damage, this is the way to go, in my opinion. It is not better than the Fugitive set on him, in my opinion, but it is very, very good. Now, another one here that you can use, and I haven't tested this one yet, I actually just got this about an hour ago. So the newest Rush Dungeon set, the In the Imagination set, is really, really strong on him as well, because of course it is going to be good for your explosion. So if you're trying to exploit your explosion, then this is going to be a really good set for you, right? So this is a really good way to go. And in general, there's going to be kind of 2 different mindsets if you're playing with Krohnen, right? So you're either going to want to go with this set right here if you're ever going to be using your Awakening spam in a game mode, so things like Guild Raid, this is really perfect for, but not every game mode allows you to use your Awakening spam, and not every game mode you would want to use your Awakening spam. So if you're in a position where you're not going to be using your Awakening spam, then I would recommend the Successor set or this guy right here, because this guy here, while it would still have some beneficial effects, you're not going to be getting the most out of your max mode if you're not using your Awakening spam, and in general, at that point, you're way better off just going with something else, right? So you'll kind of have to play around with the different sets depending on the game mode, but in general, these are the 3 that you're kind of going to live on. So those are the 3 I would recommend. Now, option cards, we have a lot to talk about. So first up, he does have an exclusive option. Now, of course, this is kind of standard fare. This is going to be that increase to your burn dealt by 60%. Really, really solid stuff. You have your skill cooldown and your attack increase there. This is something we have seen plenty of times now on all these new EX characters, these exclusive options. So I would recommend this on him, of course. But then when it comes to the second slot, being that EX characters still lack universal option cards that are exclusive to them right now, and they don't have as many of those at all as an SS or BS tag character. You can kind of play around with it. My recommendation would be a 1.9 second cooldown card of some sort, so either the Gintama card, which in my opinion would be the best one, otherwise you could go with Strategic Retreat, etc. However, there is one other thing I want to point out, and that is going to be Shermie option. This character against Nightmare Geese, using a Shermie option card, particularly in Lunatic, but also in Inferno, and you will see me have this reflected in today's video. I'm going to have this equipped in all of my Nightmare Geese footage, right? This card right here, because of his shield shred, which is a little bit right now because we don't have Rugal yet, so we haven't been able to see the full breadth of it, his shield shred is incredible. So if you attach this to him, and you take him in, just test it out on Lunatic against Nightmare Geese. This character's shield shred is ridiculous, like absolutely ridiculous. He's doing a ton of damage and a ton of multi-hits very, very quickly, and so therefore, this right here is going to be your best friend against Nightmare Geese. I highly recommend that you guys use this against him. It is awesome. So, that is another little kind of aside there. So you're going to be kind of playing around with the cards depending on the game mode, but in general, those are going to be all the different things that I would recommend. Don't forget about the Shermie option against Nightmare Geese. I highly recommend that you test that out. So, other things here, let's talk about stones. As you guys can see, I have the full setup, right? So I have all of the EX Volume 3 stones on him, and then I also have the 2 1+9999 imprint stones. That was really hard to say. They could have come up with a way better name for these. So anyway, these stones here are the ones that are obviously available in the event right now. And then of course, these are going to be the ones that you get for building up your Krohnen. So in general, this is what I would recommend. At base, you can play around with these though, because honestly, with the Volume 1 set of stones, which I do not have, then you can really play around with this because there's some options there, including that burn stone. I believe it was the circle one, which you could put right here if you really wanted to, and you're really just trying to buff up that burn explosion. But in general, there are plenty of different ways that you can play around with this. This is the way I have mine right now, mainly because these are the best options I have available to me at the moment, but these will evolve over time. So that is pretty much going to be the build. I don't really have anything else really to add to any of this. If you guys are wondering about any of my transcendental effects, there really aren't any that are really all that great on my Krohnen. I don't even think I have any outside of his finisher, so we'll double check. Actually, no, it's the option. Let's see. Yeah, we don't have any... Yeah, we don't have any beneficial effects really on our Krohnen's cards. Yeah, so we're decreasing our burn damage received by quite a bit, but that's not really anything pertinent. But this is the one right here that I did get lucky on. I'm increasing my defense type fighter's critical damage by 10.6, so I got one out of all of these different cards that was beneficial towards him, but that's okay. So that's pretty much going to be the bulk of it. One other thing I want to mention is time attack. This character is absolutely stupid in. You're going to see a clip in here. It's a 35-second run. This character just absolutely demolishes time attack as well. So in general, tons of versatility with this character. I'm extremely happy with him, no pun intended, right now. I think that this character is in a great spot. I think that this is a character that, because he is so bulky, like one of the bulkier characters I've played with, if I'm being honest, with some of the highest damage output, if not the highest damage output in the game, if fully unlocked and fully built, I think that this character's versatility speaks for itself. I really do think that while this character is not one that is going to be just kind of pick up and play, spam everything and just have fun, I think he requires a little bit more thought when playing with him than a lot of other characters. This character is still going to be able to do so much for your account that if you're a fan, I think you should be more than happy with what they did with him, because I know that I am, and in general, great stuff. One last thing, and then we can go ahead and get to the footage, guys, is we do have our fame here. So if you guys are wondering about that, that's my fame. But in general, you guys, that is going to be EX Krohnen, right? So those are my first impressions of this guy. In general, really happy with him. If you guys are pulling for him, good luck to all of you. Let me know in the comments section how you are liking him, if you've been playing around with him. But I'm gonna let you guys get to the footage. I hope you all enjoy it, and I'll see you all in the next one. You all take care. Peace.
opinion.